The world is in a massive transition. Are you prepared? Hi, I'm Reverend Tracy L., and I am here to help you navigate through these uncharted waters. Many experts told me it was not possible to repair, regenerate, and restore my body. I proved them all wrong. Isn't it time for you to reclaim what is rightfully yours? If your answer is yes, then I invite you to join me while I will help you embrace the new earth and unlock your unlimited potential. Let's connect every Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on the Tracy L. Clark Show, as featured on Transformation Talk Radio. The old ways of connecting are done, so let's embrace together the new and unleash the superhuman within. Welcome back. So excited to have our returning listeners, our new listeners, whether you're watching us on Facebook, say hello, or catching the show later on one of the other 90 outlets or YouTube. It's going to be an incredible day. It is a call-in day today with Dr. Navaz. He'll be with us. And I wanted to actually ask you guys a question today and share something beautiful. I always say that, and because we're talking always about health and body and restoration, that when you hear testimonials in the spirit and you hear other people's testimonials, that's energy you can take. And when you learn to restore and repair and listen to your body of what it's saying, this is how you get those breakthroughs. It was sort of, on the weekend, I was teaching a body regen class, and which is basically a 1 day. How do you talk to the body? How do you listen to the body? And we got this beautiful, beautiful testimonial of one of the participants. And so this was from Saturday to yesterday. She said, my language is being restored. I feel like I belong to a community where the values, purpose, and goals align. I felt my mother's love this week and grateful for the relationship we now have for whatever time she may have remaining. I can graciously receive gifts without any previous thought, which is amazing. But the thing that I love so much is she says, I'm looking at life from a new perspective, more calm, empathy, kindness, and compassion. I'm allowing for new opportunities. My physical body's restoring. I woke this morning after I slept on my right side, pain-free. I can now sleep on my back, pain-free. I'm very much at peace, knowing the feeling I always have a choice and I'm supported. You've not only helped me clear the gunk from my field, but provided me with a golden box of tools and language for my body. And the other thing that she really said is that really making sure she's able to now run, move, and she had some scarring tissue that was releasing. It's about understanding what your body's saying to you and understanding what your body's asking. One of the things I said on the Body Regen call, which we're going to get into today more as well with your nervous system, is so many people run with a very low hum in their nervous system, and they don't even realize that's driving energies of blocks and resistance. And, or if you're eating that sugar and you know it makes you feel bad, but you keep going to it, what's the underlining space? We're into the new earth. We're into a place of complete transformation. And this is why I'm very excited today and love to have you here with us today, Dr. Navaz. You know, getting people to really understand how their choices, like you and I talk about that. This is a way of life. When you live what you teach in functional medicine, I live what I teach in energy and body. And you and I both love, epigenetics and understanding that it's what you're telling your body, but also how you're fueling and how you're looking. And so I'm so thrilled, one, that you've chosen to be able to come back with us today. And we do have a call-in show, guys. So you, like doctors in the house, if you read the post, so often you might say, oh my gosh, you have the best, most compassion, empathetic, beautiful functional medicine doctor here today that will be able to answer your questions. So thank you so much for joining me again today. I'm so happy.
Absolute pleasure. It's always an honor to chat with you. I love doing this. And I'm really excited to help people get some answers. I think so many of us out there are kind of lost in what health truly means and dealing with current challenges and what we're experiencing in the moment in the world right now. And really being able to navigate that is what I know that I'm here to do. And so that's why I'm honored to be here with you.
Yeah. And if anybody missed our last show, you can check it on the Transformation Talk Radio website. You can get it on my YouTube. You can get it on their YouTube. You can go to iTunes, Spotify, wherever you like. We know we have people all over. I love that we were talking last time too about your book, which I'll show for people. See, Activate Your Vagus Nerve. If you can see me, you can see it. Other than that, you'll be able to probably get it on Amazon and on Dr. Navaz's website. But what I like too is what I'm noticing, and actually I noticed this on my class this weekend, it comes up a lot, the amount of confusion and misinformation around how people eat and what they put in their body. And I like this way and that way. And how do you even navigate when someone has their health issues with you and then they're like, well, I got to eat this way. And the other question I want to ask you before we go to our callers is, and I should tell them 1-800-930-2819. That's your calling number. The other thing is, I don't even know how you navigate this, but I'll maybe throw that one out there. So all these ways of eating, and then it seems like there's so much shaming, but everybody's so different, and how they get to healthy restoration, it's not like a one size fits all. Like, do you find that? How do you deal 100%. With that?
I think what's happened in a lot of these more recent dietary trends that have come out, and with some of the challenges that are currently present, is that there's this idea that it is a one size fits all, that everybody should be keto, everybody should be paleo, everybody should be vegan. And the truth of the matter is that's absolutely incorrect. It's absolutely not realistic. There's 7.58 billion people on the planet. We have 23,000 genes. Each one of us is different genetically. Each one of us has a different microbiome. Each one of us has a different energy, a different journey, a different level of stress, different recommendations and different preferences. And so what we need to do is navigate those to create an individual diet, right? Tracy should have Tracy's diet. Navaz has Navaz's diet. Right? Every single one of my patients that come in, I tell them we're going to start in a certain place that you feel comfortable with, that might be a little bit challenging from what you're normally used to, especially if you're eating a basic standard American diet where a lot of the foods are inflammatory. It might be a little challenging to make these changes. But the amazing things that can happen when you start to create a diet plan, a plan based on your genetics, based on your microbiome, based on testing that we can clearly say there is objective proof that you should or should not be doing this, that maybe you shouldn't be on a ketogenic diet because you don't metabolize fat very well, or maybe you shouldn't be doing vegan because your need for amino acids is much higher and your protein need is significantly higher. There's so many factors that need to go into this, and there's no such thing as a one size fits all. I will recommend, obviously, and this is a really simple, basic recommendation across the board, processed food we know is not good. We know that stuff that has added sugar, if it comes in a box, if it has more than 4 ingredients, more than likely it's got challenging things for our body to be able to break down, and we're just sending bad information to our cells. So there is obviously some basic stuff. Choose natural. Choose my basic rule is eat green, clean, and lean.
Yeah.
Green meaning start with vegetables, start with stuff that the earth is giving us. These are nutrients that we know we're supposed to have, and the earth is giving it to us, and we live on the earth. So we should probably know how to use those nutrients. Clean meaning organic, meaning if you're going to choose protein sources, get the best quality. I choose grass-fed organic beef. I choose free-range chicken. I choose the highest quality meat to make sure that it's not added with a bunch of fillers and a bunch of antibiotics and growth hormones, because that is going to come to me. It's going to create an issue in my cells, and my family doesn't want to have that challenge going on. So we choose the absolute best in terms of clean, in terms of quality. And the last is lean. Oftentimes, especially if you're going to be having conventionally raised animals, you don't want the really high fat stuff. And then we want to add in some good high fat foods, but good fats is the real key here. Choosing the right oils to cook in, making sure that you're choosing stuff that our body can actually use that isn't inflammatory. There are a lot of inflammatory oils out there. So green, clean, lean plus healthy fats is my basic set of rules for everybody.
You know, I really like that. I talked so much about this with my community around sugar, and I'm glad you brought it up, because even what I see energetically is right now, like sugar's always been I don't know, like years ago in the cane fields, there was a curse, right? That sugar was the white man's death. It was like a curse from the people working in the cane fields. And then obviously it just transmuted everywhere else. So it's sort of that space I say to people, but you can see energetically this year, it's like the bodies are shifting you can see they're shifting their frequencies to these higher elevations. But sugar this year, I always say to people, it is literally, if there's anything, and I'm not talking your fruits or like that. I mean, like what you say, like adding tablespoons of sugar or the processed foods and stuff. You can see energetically how quickly it turns these cells and how quickly it works against the body. And I'm noticing it energetically faster than every other year. It was bad before. So I'm like, wow, as the body's frequencies are moving, I'm like, and I was repeating it over and over because repetition, right? But I'm like, guys, you got to understand. And I'm noticing on the energetic level, it'll be interesting to see what you say here, is that sugar also is speeding up illness and disease in the body right now.
100%. There's no question about it. Just think of what we're currently going through, right? What the entire world is currently experiencing. Nearly 1 million people have passed away because of this diagnosis of coronavirus, COVID, SARS-2. And what's really crazy to think is of those million people approximately worldwide at this point that have passed from that or been diagnosed with it as part of their challenge, I believe the number was 94% of people in North America specifically had an average of 2.6 comorbidities. What that means is that these people had been diagnosed with multiple health conditions prior: diabetes, obesity, health challenges that are likely coming from some previous health chronic challenge. And the vast majority of those conditions that they're talking about have everything to do with metabolism, weight, insulin, stress, and sugar. And it all stems from the diet, essentially, right? We know that stress levels are higher this year. There's no question about it. Everyone's life was turned on its head, right? We were used to going to work and driving, and we were used to going to restaurants, and we were outside with people and enjoying time together, enjoying time with family, with friends. And all of a sudden that was ripped away from us. It's a traumatic event. And when that happens, we go into a stressful scenario. We go into a sympathetic fight or flight response. And all of a sudden, our body is under this cortisol pressure. There's a lot of extra work that our body needs to do to overcome that. And in being under that stress, what we're actually doing is we're decreasing our ability to digest, to actually handle the stressors of bad foods, sugar especially. And what that then does is it leads to increased effect of high sugar, increased effect of insulin, increased effect of cortisol. And our body's immune system start to shut down. So people that had been diagnosed with these conditions previously are now experiencing COVID at the worst possible levels because they're actually experiencing the comorbidities and needing to go into ICUs and being on ventilators and potentially not even making it. So this is what we really need to be aware of, is what's happening with this virus is it's exploiting the challenges that we've built from the past. And now we're becoming so much more conscious of what needs to be happening, addressing our immune systems, making sure that our diets are dialed in, because if we are dialed in, then our immune system can function at a better level, even under stress.
I love that. See, okay, this is why I like talking to people like you, because I see the energy and then I like that I can share it. And then you're like, yeah, that's what I see. This is what I say about even functional medicine, how we all work together. And people listen, so this is how we work together. So, if I've said to people where your body is really rejecting, you can see energetically, like we'll say a vegan diet or whatever, the plants. I said, you need to go to your nutritionist or your functional medicine doctor or somebody and get that looked at. And then I get but I like to eat that way. I'm like, but you're in pain. So go and see. It's like, that's what's so great. They can take so the ones that take that information and then call someone like you and say, okay, can we look at this and see what's happening? They're usually like, oh, the ones that really want change. That's the key, not the ones that want their way. But where they're like, I'm sick of feeling like this. And then they call and they're like, and then I get, thank you for letting me know, because I went and got these tests done. And as much as it may be against my belief system, which we have to work on, I said, we can work on that all day long. But if your body can't eat kale, you better stop putting kale in it. If your body can't eat that meat, you better stop, whereas you are able to give that feedback. And for people listening, this is what it's the new way is about. People coming together in all of our different areas, helping and supporting so you get like the optimal health, so you can spend time creating and manifesting your dream world. Can you agree with that?
That's exactly what I built my entire business on, is this idea of collaboration, the idea that if health is in your way, you can't perform at the absolute best of what you want to. Your ability to reach your goals, to actually have a positive effect in the world, is limited. And so what I do is I help people get the health challenges out of their way, make sure that they're functioning at a high level so that their health doesn't come in the way, and they can go out and help everybody that needs to be helped. That's what Health Upgraded's entire mission is.
You know what? And that's what I love about what you do so much, because it's so true. And people listening, if you know my story, you know that I was not able to function. I couldn't get out of bed, but I was different because I was born in a crisis. I didn't wait for a crisis. When you know people like myself and what Dr. Navaz does, you can even avert a crisis. And this is the new way. So you get to really explore what's happening in your life and how you can make the change. So, and I will say for our callers, as we're going to jump to line, guys, in anything in life, I know you believe this too, Navaz. I believe this. You got to show up. You can't just come to Dr. Navaz and myself and say, okay, what's happening here? And then not do anything and sit on your couch and go, okay, you got to be an active participant in your life. You got to listen to what he's saying and be willing to be an active participant and go home. Because if you don't go home and do it, I don't know about you, but I'm not going to come move in with you. I don't think you're going to go move in with anybody, are you? I don't think your family would like that.
Yes, not.
I know. I've had people say, can I move in with you? I'm like, yeah, no, that ain't happening. I don't think that's a good idea. So while we're going to go to the calls. If you want to call into 1-800-930-2819, and you can ask your questions to Dr. Navaz, and you can I want you to listen to what he's saying. And for people that are listening to this later as well, listen to what he's talking about, because, and if you have questions, you can also, you can email them to me or whatever, and we'll make sure that we get them. You can put them on the Facebook note there, and I can ask them to Dr. Navaz. If you're too shy to call in, you can just put them there as well. So I think, Zach, we have Laura from Ontario on the line?
Yes, we do. Laura from Ontario, you're live on the Tracy L. Clark Show.
Hi, Laura.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Tracy.
Hello. Did you have a question for Dr. Navaz today?
Yes. It's funny. I've been under a lot of stress in my home with my daughter. Tracy knows all about it. And I finally, asking her to move out and stuff like that. But the thing is that through it all, I let my health kind of slip, and I got so much weight, and I have a thyroid condition, and so anyways, I started eliminating sugar out of my diet, and I'm starting to do some exercises, and I'm trying to do some intermittent fasting just to kind of get my health back on track.
Yeah, I think too. So, Dr. Navaz, do you want to address maybe why you see a lot of thyroid issues? Because that seems to be the big one that she's bringing up, right, Laura, with the stress. When you have a huge amount of stress at home, you've had very challenging, she's had very challenging with her children, single mom. And so what would be your response with that? Because thyroid as well is, if it's left too long, can problems. But I've also seen a lot of people reverse it. So
yeah, there's no question about it. Fun little stat for you. Synthroid is the number one most prescribed medication in Canada, number 3, I believe, in the US.
Really?
Yeah. Thyroid conditions are the top most diagnosed condition. across the board, especially because so many of us are low on energy and we're not realizing where these things are coming from. Thyroid is really, really important to look at. The effect of the thyroid is to increase metabolism in our cells. The intention is so that we can create more energy, more cellular energy. So the way that that works is we need to take in certain nutrients that we can specifically use in the thyroid to create T4 and T3. These are the thyroid hormones that our body uses. And essentially, the thyroid produces T4 out of iodine. Iodine is the main nutrient that's necessary for the thyroid to do its job. The conversion from the inactive form of the hormone, which is T4, to the active version of the hormone, which is T3, does not occur in the thyroid. T3 conversion, T4 to T3 conversion occurs in two specific organs, 95% of it at least, occurs in the liver and in the gut. If those two organs are not functioning well, then the conversion of T4 to T3 cannot happen, and T3 cannot then go and tell the cell, I need you to produce more energy. And that's where a lot of people have challenges, because we say we're going to go and test on the blood work and we're looking at TSH. TSH is the marker of thyroid according to the conventional way of looking at it. The problem with TSH is it's not a marker of your thyroid itself. It's a marker of, TSH stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. It's actually coming from your hypothalamus and your pituitary. That is sending down this signal to your thyroid saying we now need more energy. So we're actually testing to see what is the need for the thyroid to do the job, not is the thyroid doing the job. So the optimal scenario would be if you do have a thyroid condition or if you suspect you have a thyroid condition, getting blood work to check to see your TSH levels, which are important to note, but they're not the entire story. We also need to look at T4, T3. We need to look at free levels of those same hormones, T4 and T3. And here's the kicker. What is generally not tested for across the board are the antibodies against the thyroid, the root cause of where that might actually be coming from. The antibodies of the thyroid are the TPO, thyroid peroxidase, and TGB antibodies. Those two antibodies can tell you if your thyroid condition is coming from the gut, is coming from an autoimmune-based condition. So we want to look back and figure out where is the challenge in the thyroid actually coming from. We also need to look forward and say, okay, well, if there is enough thyroid hormone, why are we then not producing enough energy in our cells? And that's where we go and look at the mitochondria to make sure, because at the end point of the thyroid is actually production of energy in the cell, in the mitochondria. So addressing that, testing that is really key. That's where functional medicine really, really thrives. Is we're not just going to sit and say your label is hypothyroidism, you're low energy, here's Synthroid, go for it. We're going to go and look on either side. What's causing the thyroid to potentially go bad? What's causing the mitochondria to not be able to produce energy? And be able to address if the mitochondria can't function, that's why the thyroid needs to have a higher TSH level, telling us that we then need more energy. So we're looking at the function. We're looking at the entire realm of that. There's a lot of us that are under stress, especially for Laura, for example, being single mom, dealing with challenges in the home. Obviously, through COVID, there was a lot going on. So the thyroid is a piece of the puzzle, but we need to look at the liver. We need to look at the gut. The liver is essentially the conductor of the orchestra in the body. The gut is where we get all of our nutrients.
I always say the liver. People always are like, so there was this old, I get when people start looking at energy and emotions, they don't say the liver processes the anger. And I've been saying forever, no, the liver processes every emotion and everything going through the body. It's why it's as big as it is. And I love that you just said that. And so would you say so Laura, I know you're listening there. Would you, she's cut out the sugar. She's working to cut out the sugar. Basically kind of what you're saying. My cats are having a very loud back there. You probably hear them. Sorry guys. They like to interact with our show. They're decided to have a who's better than who. That's their love fight. Would you say it's, a leaky gut too? Like, you know how they say like leaky gut, like normally you're saying the gut, you're saying the liver, it is the emotions, the stress, but is she on that right path? Because I know, Laura, you always want to know, am I starting on the right path? by saying, I'm going to get rid of the sugar? Like, what would you say for someone that's just starting? They're like, okay, I know I got to go see a functional medicine person or whatever, but for someone like her that's just been under the stress, is this the right place to start? Her fasting, her sugar. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, based on, Laura, what you had talked about, trying the intermittent fasting, trying to cut down on the insulin spikes, trying to cut down on some of those challenges that you were experiencing, cutting out sugar and intermittent fasting are exactly right along that exact start line. You're doing really, really well with those initial recommendations. There's a few more that I would add in and make sure that you're kind of focused on, and they're very foundational. These are things that essentially everybody should be doing. Number one, getting more sleep, getting better sleep, really, really good quality sleep. We don't realize how much sleep affects us, but the reason why fasting works so well is we're actually giving our gut a break. We're giving our gut an opportunity to slow down. When we then give our gut an opportunity to slow down, because digestion is a very energy intensive process, we then need to recover from high levels of digestion. So we need to sleep, and sleep is where we recover. It's like the gym for the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve is our recovery nerve. It's what I wrote the entire book about. We need to be able to overcome the stressors of the day. And the intention is, let's decrease.
Sorry about my dog barking.
Everybody's got their animals going today. That's what happens in your life. Okay.
I love it. Essentially, what we need to look at is making sure that we are able to recover from stressors of the day, whether it's sugar, whether it's emotional stress, whether there's trauma in the past, doesn't matter. So giving our body some recovery time. So intermittent fasting is awesome. Sleep is where we then need to focus our attention. And what actually, here's a crazy thing. People don't realize this. You think, I need to sleep better. What's the first thing you think of? It's making sure that your sleep hygiene, that your room is ready for you to sleep optimally in. The real key to this is going outside during the day. What happens in our bodies when we go outside during the day is we get light in our eyes. And there's nothing more bright that gives off more energy than the sun. And what actually is happening, what we've been built to do, is convert those rays of sun into awakening energy and essentially creating our circadian rhythm. And when we increase our circadian rhythm, or when we go based on what's happening with the sun, as the sun rises, our energy increases. And as the sun sets, you'll notice the light energy changes. It changes from a red energy in the morning, a blue energy in midday, blue light, red energy again in the evening, and that is where we can convert. So when the blue energy comes, we are converting from melatonin to serotonin. We're producing serotonin in our body. We're improving our mood. It's why we enjoy sunny days and don't feel so good on cloudy or not so sunny days, or when we're stuck indoors all the time. So going outside will then increase serotonin levels, and serotonin converts at night to melatonin, allowing us to get into a calm state, allowing us to then get into a sleep state and feeling significantly better at night, thus getting more restful sleep, more deep sleep, etc. Another awesome tool that you can use to optimize your sleep, getting to bed before midnight. Too many of us watch the 11 o'clock news, go to bed 11:30, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. Here's a little trick for you. Every hour that you sleep prior to midnight counts for 2 hours. We actually produce growth hormone and recovery hormones during nighttime, and it only happens generally between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And so if we're going to sleep at midnight, we're getting at best 2 hours of recovery time of growth hormone. If it happens between 10 and 2, you're getting almost 6 hours worth of growth hormone production. So the sooner you can go to bed, follow the light, live according to the sun, spend your days according to the sun, you're going to notice major changes in your sleep and your overall energy. And this is how we have systematically taken the energy of the world and been able to show you this is how it manifests in us.
I love it. Maybe that's why I keep de-aging. I like to go to bed at 10 o'clock. I always have 10 o'clock going to bed. Yeah. Laura, does that make sense for you?
It does make sense. So I've worked on eliminating sugar. I drinking my coffee black. I haven't had any sugary stuff at all. And now it's just the next thing is my sleep pattern's really messed up. I fall asleep around 2 a.m. So I
had a feeling that it's very common.
You're very right. So what I would suggest is when you listen to the replay again and watch and take those notes, and everybody listening and try them, and then, let us know how you're making out. All right. Okay, lovely. Thank you. Okay, Zach, we have Maria on the line from Denver.
Yes, Maria from Denver. You're live on the Tracy L. Clark Show.
Hi, Maria.
Hi, thank you so much for taking. Hi, thank you, Tracy, for taking my call. This topic that you're talking about is sleep, and it's exactly what I was going to ask about. And it's been so fascinating what you've been saying. My question is, I have had I'm healing from a buildup of stress, and what's happened in my system is that at the end of the day, sometimes like around 7 p.m., I'll feel this urge to want to go to sleep. But I thought, oh my God, I can't go to sleep at 7. I have too much to do. I don't want to. And then my body sort of kicks into a higher gear, and I can't go to sleep then for hours after a normal time. And I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. So essentially, and I just want to get this right, you're feeling tired 6:30, 7:30 p.m. and you're essentially saying it's too early. I just can't go to bed. I can't handle this. But then you kind of force yourself to stay awake, and then you have so much trouble then falling asleep later on. Correct?
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. What often happens is we might have just some sort of energy challenges that are there to begin with. And that's maybe why you're initially feeling really tired around that 6:37 p.m. timeline initially. So checking your cortisol daily pattern would be really, really interesting. Getting to know what your cortisol levels are like all throughout the day. Cortisol is our stress hormone, but it's also the hormone that allows us to be awake, to handle stressors, to be able to actually spend our day following that circadian rhythm. And what happens often is if we're starting to feel really tired at 7 o'clock, the first thing is kudos for actually being able to listen to your body and realizing that your body is tired at 7 p.m. Don't feel any shame about that at all. In fact, it's a really positive thing that you are aware of that. But the second thing is then noticing that when you do force yourself to stay awake, what you're probably doing is you're causing yourself to go into increased stress. You're actually increasing your cortisol level. Our cortisol, being our active adrenal hormone, is supposed to rise right from when we wake up. It should be relatively low. It should jump up for that morning kind of 9 a.m., 9:30 a.m. kind of timeline. And then it should slowly start to dip down in the afternoon and completely knock out at night when we're supposed to go to sleep. What I see often is when people are getting really tired in that evening time, what they're doing is they're forcing themselves awake with food, with other things to help increase their energy levels. And what that's actually doing is it's adrenally pushing you so that your cortisol level is going back up at night. And it's a stressor, essentially. You're causing stress to be able to stay awake. And then that cortisol level is so high that you then cannot fall back asleep. Okay?
Right.
So,
I can almost literally feel what you're saying. My body feels like it's like the accelerator gets put on in my system.
Exactly. And that accelerator is not regular energy. It's not cellular energy. It's forced energy through the hormone system, through the adrenals. And essentially what you're doing is you're pushing yourself further into an adrenal fatigue state. And that's not optimal, obviously. So the first thing that you need to do is start to listen to your body and actually maybe just take it easy from 7 p.m. onwards. Don't necessarily need to go to bed, but let yourself go into a calm state. Start using blue blocking glasses. Those are great for making sure that the blue light, if you're going to watch TV or you're going to be in front of a laptop or something for the evening, it's not going to force you back into that cortisol adrenal awake state. So blue blocking glasses would be really helpful. The second thing is check to see if you can, somebody near you, somebody around you, to check your mitochondrial function, making sure that your ability to produce energy is optimal. You need to have certain tools to create energy in the body. There's certain, like 3 basic things that you really need. B vitamins to help make sure that your cells actually have the tools to do their job. Amino acids to make sure that the workers in the cells actually show up. Amino acids are made of protein. And if we don't have enough protein or we're not able to break down that protein effectively, we don't get those amino acids in. then we can't actually produce any energy, which is really, really important. And that's why mitochondrial function, checking to see what's going on with the mitochondria, is really, really key. Okay. And then the last thing is certain nutrients like magnesium, coenzyme Q10. There's a few other ones, lipoic acid, carnitine. They're all going to be kind of necessary in that metabolism state. So being able to actually produce energy in the cell is really, really key. I would highly recommend that you look into addressing those. So I use organic acid testing, urinary organic acid tests with my patients to identify exactly what's going on with those specific nutrient needs. And then I give clear, like concise and easy to follow steps using supplements in the short term, but ideally following it along with specific nutrients, specific dietary changes in the long term.
How does that feel?
That feels like, yeah, I appreciate all that information.
Yeah. And what I'll do for you is an energetic shift and boost, because I can, while Dr. Navaz is talking. It's kind of the nice way to start to increase the energetic level. So the energy body of the adrenals and the kidneys and how they're connecting to the rest of the organs. A little bit of a disconnect there energetically. So I can clean some of that up for you. And if you follow that, I know I always have my blue light glasses on my desk. I always say they're like, here you are. You know, I find they make a huge difference, especially for a lot of us that are on computers all day long. It's really wonderful. So does that feel a little bit better now, Maria?
Yeah, I do. I feel a little bit of a lift. Thank you so much for working on my energetic, because I'd like to be able to stay up later.
Yeah, you know, it's like, I've seen this with a lot of people too, and it is true. And once you start to shift that and do some of those things that Dr. Navaz was saying, we can give you the boost energetically in the field for the internal and external field. The body can become stronger. And then you'll find that as you do these tips as well, the body won't revert backwards. It'll just keep going so you can be nice and healthy. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have an incredible day. All right. Navaz, I have some questions that people have submitted. If we can maybe go through some of these. I know we've got a little bit of time here. Evelyn wanted to know, when a woman's cycle stops for over 2 years, but they're still young and active and they're not taking any medicine, what's your thought on that of the body?
Very, very common to actually hear this. I'm
really?
Yeah. It's hormones are an orchestra. I talked about the conductor being the liver before. All of our hormones are an orchestra. And our body will make adjustments to try to keep us in a state of homeostasis, in a state of constant function and survival when it doesn't have the exact right tools for optimization, right? So in an optimal scenario, and great question, Evelyn, in an optimal scenario, the hormones and the cycle should be optimal, right? On a 28-day, ideally 28 to 30-day cycle with estrogen, progesterone being in a proper balance. We should be having that bleed week. We should be having everything kind of follow that lunar pattern that Dr. Stephanie talks a lot about, which I think is a wonderful thing. By the way, Dr. Stephanie Estima, her Better podcast is a wonderful tool, especially for females to be able to listen to and understand some of the challenges that might be going on from a hormonal and specifically from a female perspective. So I think that's really good. But when the hormones are a little bit off, when there is something that's not right, the one that we tend to look at when your estrogen and your cycle is a little bit off, specifically is the adrenals. Okay. When cortisol levels are excessively high, when the stress levels are certainly challenged, and we have to look at all the 4 different types of stress. We'll talk about that. But when the adrenals are a little bit too high, it shuts down things that it doesn't deem necessary in that moment for survival. And for survival at that moment, it does not deem reproduction necessary. So it actually shuts down estrogen and progesterone. And it actually steals the hormone cascade towards the stress side, away from the sex hormone side. There's an actual full chart about how this goes. In our bodies, we take in cholesterol. Cholesterol is actually not bad for us. Cholesterol from our diet comes in, and it's converted to a hormone or a product called pregnenolone. Pregnenolone shifts into DHEA, and progesterone. So we are first producing ideally progesterone, and then the DHEA converts to some of the sex hormones, but also goes down the stress hormone side. And the actual situation here is called pregnenolone steal, where it's taking away from the progesterone side, taking away from the conversion to estrogen, and pushing it all towards cortisone and cortisol. And that's where it's going because the body is under some sort of stress. And so the 4 types of stress that I want to talk about, and stress, very, very important. Biochemical stress, meaning toxins in the environment, meaning personal care products where a lot of toxins come up. People don't realize this. I actually had a call with a lady yesterday who her toxin burden on her liver was, there's a measurement on the urinary organic acid test that goes relatively high, and hers showed up beyond the upper limit because her stress levels were so high, and she had previously been diagnosed with cancer. So that was the root cause of that for her. But toxic burden, biochemical stress, includes foods that we're eating, inorganic foods, potentially things that have been sprayed with pesticides and herbicides. So that's part of the stressors that our body then has to handle. So that's on the biochemical stress. Physical stress, not moving enough, not moving correctly, being in a terrible hunched over laptop posture for hours on end, or sitting on our cell phones for hours on end. Being in those positions are physical stressors on our body. So biochemical, physical, psychological, and emotional traumas also play a major role. And these are stressors that we hold on to, the beliefs and energy challenges, things that are caging us in from being able to really appreciate and be able to function at an optimal level. So addressing all 4 of those stressors, or at least working to identify where those challenges are coming from, whether it's daily stressors, previous traumatic incidents. We want to look through all of those, try to work through some of those, especially the ones that are upfront. Physical and biochemical stressors can reasonably easily be taken care of with exercise, with movement, just going for straight walks, going outdoors, trying to get some of that fresh air. That's going to make a big difference on some of the chemicals and indoor air quality that we tend to have issues with. And then the physical stressors, working on making sure that our posture is really good. Okay, so we're looking at the adrenals probably being the issue for that, but don't just address the adrenals. Don't just get supplements that are adrenal supplementation. They can be helpful, but find out why the adrenals are messing up. Step back and ask why. That's what functional medicine is really good at, is stepping back and asking, why is this happening?
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important. You've said this a couple times. So people listening, it's like, you got to get outside. You got to go outside. I always say, if I don't get my walk every day, I realized you and I know we were both on this conference for 2 days. And literally by the end of, like, it went from 10 to 4. I literally had to take a break in the middle and get outside. Like my body was shutting down. And then you realize very quickly, you and I know our bodies very well, and getting outside, huge. I didn't know this was such a big problem. I'm glad she asked and brought that through, and to be able to listen. And the other thing, like you say, is I use this word too, and I love how you say the orchestra of the body. Nothing's working separate. It's all working together. So what you said there was so important for people listening. I believe it is don't just go, I think it's in my adrenals are flatlining, I go get an adrenal support. And people do that all the time versus, okay, why? Why is this happening? So I have to say, I love that you said this. Now, I know we're coming to the top of the hour, but I have another question here from Julia Myers. How can any TMJ issues with misaligned jaw be caused from stress? Do I focus on stress relief? Also, what would be an underlying cause of eczema in an infant?
Ooh, okay. 2 good ones. I realized I forgot to mention one quick thing for Evelyn's question. So,
yes.
Evelyn, you talked about the person you were discussing specifically also being a bit of an athlete. So overtraining, very, very common cause of cortisol imbalance as well. So overdoing the exercise can be a bit of a challenge. So taking some recovery and rest time is important, but keep in mind those hormones tend to take a few months to get back, especially if it's been a couple of years. So consider that as an important role. So let's talk about infant eczema for sure. I have a 3-year-old daughter. We are expecting our second as well right now. So super exciting. I know what goes on in parents' minds. I live it every single day. And so infants and eczema, I can't even explain to you over the last 10 years how common this has become, how commonplace it is for skin conditions in kids. It's crazy. I literally had a phone call with one of my best friends from chiropractic school this morning telling me his 9-year-old has had eczema for the last 3 years. Blew my mind that he hadn't called me yet, but this is such a common thing. We have to look at the gut. Infants is difficult. So oftentimes with infants, you can't go and do a stool test and actually get really strong bacterial imbalance and issues there. You want to wait till they're about 2. But with an infant, what you're looking specifically at is what is their diet. You need to address dietary challenges there for sure. So look back specifically at dairy, especially being a potential source of this. If they're breastfed, wonderful. What's mom eating? If they're not breastfed, if they're on formula, what quality formula are you getting? My wife had some challenges. We were able to do some nursing and it had to be some supplementation. We were adamant, and I was, as you can probably guess, I was adamant about getting the highest quality formula that we possibly could. We actually imported it in from Germany. Wow. It's really, really good stuff to make sure that you get that high quality dairy. And it turned out with my daughter, she would have coughs and she would actually spit up quite a bit when she was younger. It turned out that it was dairy that was triggering her issues. So we actually switched her onto a pea milk, an organic pea milk, which has enough protein, which has more calcium than milk, by the way, which milk is not exactly great for calcium. But addressing those dietary challenges will make a huge difference, because the minute we stopped regular cow's milk dairy for my daughter, the coughing and the spitting up ended completely. And she used to spit up 7 times a day. Like, we had rags everywhere to make sure that this stuff wouldn't happen. So I've experienced that challenge. It's for sure coming from a dietary perspective. And so with infants with eczema, the way that this works is, if you have a challenge in the gut, if you have something that's causing something really important that Tracy mentioned earlier, leaky gut. Our guts are leaky when we're born on purpose, because when we're getting mother's milk contains antibodies that our body as an infant cannot yet produce. So we need to get those antibodies into our body. And the only way to do that is through breast milk, through that nursing. We're then actually, through our leaky gut, taking in these antibodies. It's very common that some kids might actually be getting fed foods that are going through that leaky gut well before the 6 months, or even around that 6-month time, when our immune system finally starts to kick in and we can create those antibodies ourselves. Slowly, the gut should heal up. The cells should come together and not be leaky anymore. So initially, we're born with that leaky gut. But if we feed kids too early, what that then does is it creates barrier issues, creates greater leaky gut, leads to other challenges. And our bodies are really smart. So when we see eczema, psoriasis, acne, things on the skin, it's a direct sign that something's going on in the gut. Our body's trying to tell us. We can't actually see inside our gut without a camera, but our bodies don't know that. So what it does is it tells us on our skin and says, hey, here's some discoloration. Something is going wrong inside here. Fix this now. And I see this all the time. Cutting dairy is one of the most important things that you can do, because oftentimes the dairy that we're getting is really poor quality. We don't realize what it's been injected with, the hormones, the challenges that might be coming from there. What is the cow eating? Generally, they're not fed with the best stuff. So we want to be really careful with that. And I do forget what the other question is.
I do want to just quick. Yeah, I'll repeat the other question quickly. And my grandfather was a dairy farmer, and I watched the transition over for a long, long time. Like, the farm was in the family for over 100 years here in Ontario. And I watched the transition of what was force and push. I went off milk when I started seeing all the pus and blood go in, and they're like, this is like, when you get fresh, really good, not pumped antibiotic, there's a big difference. And you probably notice this for when I'm in Europe, I can actually drink their milk product and I can actually eat their bread. I find in North America, it's very hard for my system. It doesn't like it. So I think people have to be aware of, exactly where you're getting it from and why.
100%. And it's funny you say that for Europe specifically. We've had patients diagnosed with celiac. These are people that can't handle wheat. And they go to Italy and they're like, well, I'm here. I'm going to try pasta. And there's no symptoms, no issues. They come back, same idea. They have a piece of bread and all of a sudden, done for a week. Yeah. So it absolutely has to do with agricultural practices in North America. The fact that you've witnessed that is crazy.
100%. I witnessed it. And I will say that when I went to actually years later try like milk, it tasted like dirt. And people are like, what? I'm like, yeah, you really get to understand. And so everyone's like, oh, that's just a North American thing. Well, yeah, because unfortunately, North America, we don't have the strict regulations that are in some other parts of the world. And unfortunately, yeah, those things creep into your body. And that's why when I say to people that your body doesn't seem to resonate with that, and they're like, no, I want to be this way. I'm like, well, then it wouldn't be reacting. It wouldn't be reacting. Simple thing. Julie's other question was, when you have TMJ, let me make sure, linked to stress, and let me just make sure I do answer this correctly. Anything that when you misalignment, TMJ linked to stress, anything that can be helpful there for her is what she's just.
Wonderful question. I am a functional medicine doctor, but my initial accreditation is as a chiropractor. So I'm very aware of what can happen from a TMJ dysfunction perspective. For those who don't know, TMJ means temporomandibular joint. It's literally the joint right kind of in front of the ear that has to do with your jaw. Temporomandibular joint. Okay. And TMJ dysfunction is one of the most painful things you can go through because you literally cannot open your mouth without some sort of issue going on or some sort of pain. And we have to look at where you might be holding your stress. This is a really interesting thing for a lot of people to understand, but I feel like I'm on the right radio show for people to say, yeah, we can definitely talk about this. Oftentimes it's linked with issues with throat chakra, not being able to speak your truth and holding on to tension in the muscles in and around the jaw specifically. So we have muscles kind of right from the top of the head here, or the side of the head, that come right down and actually cause and force the jaw to close. That's really important to know. And then there's the masseter muscle, which sits right over top of that. Those two muscles play such a huge role in chewing and being able to close the joint. Our TMJ joint is really odd in the way that it functions. It doesn't just slide, or it doesn't just kind of rotate like this. It actually slides. It's one of the only joints that has so much range within it. And because of that excess movement that can occur, it means more issues can occur. So we have our bone that sits above, kind of on the top of this area here. And then we've got the actual head of the mandible that goes up into that area. But between that, there's actually a fibrous disc, okay? Kind of like the discs that are between your vertebrae and your spine. And that disc actually allows for movement to occur. So in a treatment fashion, I would look into TMJ dysfunction with potentially dentists that focus on this, but chiropractors do train on learning how to help manage TMJ. It's something that I learned. I've worked with numerous people with the same challenge, and addressing it from a treatment perspective, actually getting some motion, getting the things back into the TMJ. Acupuncture is wonderful. Actual manipulation of the mandible and being able to play with some of those muscles and release some of the muscles from inside and from outside are wonderful from a treatment perspective. But if it's coming from stress, I need you to always look back and think about where that stress is coming from and look into where those challenges are coming from. Throat chakra has to do with speaking your truth. If you don't feel like you can, then it's really important to focus our attention from an energy perspective in that.
I love it. I love it. I know we have a minute left. Okay. Please tell people, thank you. Thank you. I can't believe I looked and I'm like, oh my God, we're getting kicked off already. Where can people find you? Where best way to get
the website is healthupgraded.com. Located in Canada, work with people all over the world consulting and help people overcome their health challenges, overcome the root cause of their problems so that we can help them maintain and go out and affect the world in a very positive way. And if you want to learn more about my book and vagus nerve stuff, it's on Amazon. It's just called Activate Your Vagus Nerve. Feel free to look it up. And I'm very, very happy to share my work with everybody.
I am so happy you joined us. I can't thank you enough. Valuable, valuable information. And I know it's just going to touch so many people and everybody listening. So thank you. Thank you for joining me again this week. And what a pleasure.
My absolute honor. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. Have an incredible week. Actually, join me next week. We're talking about the energy of money with Guildhall Wealth Specialist Jeremy Wiseman, who we love, all about silver, gold, and the transition that's coming up with the monetary system. This is one you don't want to miss if you think you have a wealth frequency vibe. We're going to shift that for you. But please get your book, activate your vagus nerve system. Have an incredible, blessed week. And I hope you listen to this again because there's so many great nuggets that I know you're going to take away once you hear it again. Have an incredible week, everyone. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Tracy L. Clark Show with me, Tracy L., where I teach you how to connect to the God consciousness so you can unlock your superpowers and connect at light speed and live your extraordinary life. Tune in every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio, where together we will unlock the secrets of your body and your life. As the founder of the Body Regeneration Academy, I, Tracy L., will provide you with the insight and simple tools you can apply right now in your life to move you forward and leave the past in the dust. To join the Body Regeneration TLC Online Academy, make sure you check me out at tracylclark.com.
The views expressed on this program are those of the host, guests, and callers, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the station, its management, or advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.